At this point, Rick Harrison's hearing was still mostly about the charges of drug trafficking and money laundering, a business case that fans and the media all over the country were very interested in. This is when the 27th person spoke up, a young woman with a face and name that have never been seen on porn stars. She only gave a short welcome, his daughter who he adopted. It was quiet in the courtroom for a moment, but her next words broke the spell. They took turns saying 5 words about me, but they were enough to turn the whole trial on its head and break down the facade that had been built up over thousands of TV shows, advertising visits, and the idea of America's perfect father. No one knew that Rick Harrison had been hiding an adopted daughter for more than 10 years. When she went to court, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She brought a terrible story of control, abuse, and constant silence. Were what she said true, or were they just a cruel twist in the middle of a media storm? Beginning, how the TV works. Dad's dad. Putting together and protecting a kingdom. Rick Harrison used to be the perfect example of American reality TV. He was a down-to-earth businessman from the middle class who turned a run-down pawn shop in Las Vegas into an entertainment company worth tens of millions of dollars. For more than 10 years, people watched porn stars for more than just the antiques. But for Rick, the man behind the counter, whose voice sounds wise and half-smiled like he comes from a family that knows what's right. When it first aired on the History Channel in 2009, Porn Stars quickly became a huge hit. It was easy to read and understand. People who went to the gold and silver porn shop brought strange or expensive things with them. And Rick, along with his family, evaluated, bargained, and bought them. But it wasn't the artifacts that made the show successful. It was the family. Rick and his father, Richard Oldman Harrison, represented 2 eras, 2 ways of thinking, and 2 ways of negotiating. Corey, Rick's son, stood for the new generation, acting on impulse and questioning convention, but very committed to carrying on the family name. Together, they told a deeply personal story that made people feel like they were part of that family and learned about history. Rick Harrison was at the center of it all. He was more than just the shop's manager. He decided what the story was about. Rick was known for being very in charge behind the scenes. He insisted on seeing cuts of episodes before they were shown, stepped in during post-production as needed, and wouldn't let anything go on TV that could hurt the family's reputation. There had to be something familiar, polite, and very American in everything. The media machinery worked together perfectly. Rick had a funny personality when he was interviewed, sometimes sarcastic, but never going too far with their morals. Every piece and TV show he did was like armor that kept people from suspecting him. There were rumors in the business that Rick wasn't as friendly off-screen as he was on, but no one was brave enough to look into it. Rick did make money, after all. But there was a strange hole in this picture of a perfect family. There wasn't a kid. Not once did Rick talk about an adopted daughter on the show, in magazines, or at fan events. He did talk about my son, my father, and my team. There were no pictures, personal stories, or performances on TV or radio. The press used to give clear answers. She may not have liked being in the spotlight. Some people thought Rick might have wanted to keep his kids' privacy. In hindsight, though, it wasn't sweet or good. It was a gap that killed. There is evidence that Rick made up a TV family that was completely different from his real family. One member of the family was cut out of the story to hide a dark secret. His daughter's departure wasn't just a random event, it was the start of a secret crime network. While everyone loved Rick as the Mecca Carner, as Farika's father figure, he should have been there to protect her, but instead he left her alone and made her deal with a system that was set up to keep her quiet. When the trial starts, it comes out that Rick had put an internal camera system in his home, that his adopted daughter was homeschooled and had no friends or freedom. She couldn't even lock her door, and that there was never a family picture of her with Rick. A new shot showed up, one side of Rick Harrison, that no one had ever seen. This man used his fame to hide who he really was, a man who not only managed what happened on TV, but also the truth. Double A. The Shadow Girl. People for a long time thought that the girl in question did not exist. On the other hand, if she did, she was seen as a part of Rick Harrison's private life, which was off limits to reporters because Harrison was her foster father. But during that test, it was clear that the silence wasn't out of love, but out of tact. She never had her real name shown on TV, or written down in a piece or interview about Rick. Court papers, and her own words, say that she was born in San Bernardino, California, in 2001. Her real mother had a hard time with drug abuse, and went to rehab several times before being found unfit to be a parent. Unknown to her, her real father was thought to have been poor, and sometimes in jail. She was in and out of foster care from the time she was very young, going from house to house and calling new people dad and mom all the time. At age 10, she was chosen for a charity program in Las Vegas for kids who don't have much. Rick was the main sponsor of the show. The victim said that he walked into the busy room and stopped only in one corner, where she was sitting. She was quiet, thin, and her eyes were empty, not squabbling over candy like the other kids. She told the court, "He looked at me like I was a unique object." Right after that happened, Rick started the process of adopting. The timeline moved along way too quickly. Nevada law says that people who want to adopt must go through at least 12 months of background checks, therapy, and home supervision. Still, was given permanent rights in just 84 days. It wasn't a question because he was Rick Harrison. So the girl came into his life, not because she loved him, but because they had a formal agreement. At first, when she moved into Rick's West Las Vegas home, everything seemed perfect. She had her own room, nice clothes, hot meals, and a famous rich father, who smiled at her a lot. But the rules showed up within a few weeks. She couldn't leave her room after 8 o'clock at night. Locks on rooms were not allowed. It was forbidden to use social media. She couldn't call anyone without being watched. Tutors who changed every few months taught her at home. There were no friends, no school, and no one else around. When she was 11, she noticed she didn't live with her family, but in a system of complete control, where everything she did and felt had to be approved of. When her lawyer asked her why she didn't fight back, she said, "I thought I was lucky. Every child in foster care wants to have a home. Also, my dad was well known. I thought he loved me, but his shows of care quickly went too far." She said she didn't want back rubs or kisses on the face every night. That made her feel bad. For safety's sake, cameras were put up in the hallway. Rick's smile turned into her worst fear over time. She couldn't remember the exact moment when he went from being a foster father to abusing her. Everything was done under the cover of love. "I only do this because you're special," Rick would say in a low voice. "You deserve the best. Keep it a secret." They didn't get it. Isolation was the first step in the circle of control, and psychological trickery was the last. Even scarier was the fact that her half-brother Corey Harrison was there with the family. Mostly he watched and rarely spoke. Her statement said that Corey got mad at her whenever she didn't do what she was told. Rick once told her, "You need to learn how to share affection in this family. I'm one with your brother here." She realized at that moment that she wasn't a kid chosen out of love, but something that was owned. Over time, these acts turned into late-night lessons and became habits. Corey going into her room without tapping first. Hugs that are longer than normal. She would cry or complain, and he would tell her, "If you're not grateful, I can send you back where you came from." There was no need to yell threats. She couldn't say anything when she thought about being in foster care or living on the streets. "I didn't want to be another number. At least I was Rick Harrison's daughter here." Even though that name was never really mine, she wrote in a notebook that was given as proof. She wasn't brave enough to tell anyone, and every time a new teacher came in, she tried to speak up, but was met with rude silence. Some people saw it, but said they didn't. She told the judge that they worked for Rick Harrison, and not their own morals, which left the audience in stunned silence. At age 15, she tried to get away. She got out through a side door, and went to the police station that was closest to her. Nevertheless, within hours, showed up with a lawyer. He made her seem like a disturbed kid who had been emotionally hurt by her mother leaving her. The cops believed him and took her back. It was safer this time that the door to her room was locked behind her. The only things Rick couldn't change were her memory and her determination. She wrote it all down, even though she was scared. Every recording and every detail. She changed the names of files and hid memory cards to gather proof for the day she knew that keeping quiet would destroy what was left of her. That day came. She wasn't the unhappy child when she was on the witness stand. She was the only grown-up in the room who was brave enough to stand up and say, "I am the truth you tried to bury alive." The third part of the hearing takes place in Las Vegas on Monday morning. Rick Harrison is on trial in federal court for his role in a high-profile case of artifacts theft and money laundering. The trial started its third week with a shocking development. A woman